You're listening to the Silver Phoenix Happy Hour with Blaze and Ken. And now, Blaze and Ken.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Silver Phoenix Happy Hour. I'm Blaze.
I'm Ken. Oh God, I am excited for today actually, Blaze. We got a lot of
Me
fun
too.
stuff going on.
Me too, for sure.
Our guest is incredible. Actually, I've gotten to meet this guy a couple times, and he's one of my all-time favorite writers, actually. And I got a present coming your way based on our
You
guest.
do?
I do.
Oh, fantastic. I love
So,
presents. What's the occasion? I love it. Summer?
yeah. Well, actually, it's a belated birthday gift that I still haven't seen you for
Oh,
yet. So it's been a
thank
while.
you. Thank you. Better late than never is how I
Yeah,
always say
exactly. Exactly.
it. That's awesome. So listen, what have you been up to? I know we've had a little sabbatical here for the summer here and there. So what have you been watching most importantly? Like, what have you been up to?
Most importantly, what I've been watching is something that I think I might have actually gotten you involved with or obsessed with. And
Okay.
for me, that's Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Yes, I'm totally hooked. Yes,
It's a
100%.
great show. Like, I love how reminiscent of the original series feel it gives, where it's even though the effects are all upgraded, it still keeps to the feel of the old show with a lot of like the worlds and the look of everything.
Right.
I like that retro aspect to it and still keeping it modern. But the cast is so good.
They're
Uh,
so good.
Anson Mount as Pike, I just love him. I love the fact that you have a captain that does at least weekly dinners in his quarters with the
Mhm.
crew, and the way he treats them. They're not subordinates. They're all colleagues essentially in his
Right.
eyes because they all work together. Um, and this most recent episode or one of the most recent ones, I think kind of solidified a lot of how he felt about his
Yeah,
crew.
that was the musical one you're talking about, right? The Subspace
Yeah,
Rhapsody?
Subspace Rhapsody. I love the name of it too. It's so awesome.
It's really cool. I felt like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he looks a little bit like William Shatner, when he was younger, like facially, and he's
What
not supposed to play Captain he
Pike
doesn't
or
play Pike. Yeah, he doesn't look he's not supposed to play he's not Captain Kirk, he's Pike, but I think
right?
physically he resembles William Shatner a little
Really?
bit. So I
Okay.
do.
Well,
Yeah,
which
when
is
I first saw him, I was like,
because
"Wait, are they trying to make him a young" I thought maybe he was Captain Kirk originally when I first saw the first episode, and then when they said
no.
Captain Pike, I was like, "Oh, that's not Captain Kirk?" Like, it took
So
me back for a minute.
one of the things I don't know how big of a Star Trek fan you actually are,
I am
but
big fan, yeah.
in the '60s, the original pilot was an episode called The Cage, and
Okay.
Jeffrey Hunter was the original captain. The actor Jeffrey Hunter, who went up later on going on to play Jesus, and I think getting nominated for an Academy Award. Um, was Captain Pike in the pilot episode, and
Okay.
it tested and it didn't test well.
Mm,
But Gene Roddenberry was so adamant about making this work, he took studio directions and decided to make it more of a Western type feel instead of this weird psychological story that the original episode pilot The Cage was.
right.
And they retooled it, and that's when Shatner and the rest of that crew all or that cast all came in.
Yeah.
Um, they wanted to bring Jeffrey Hunter back, but at that point he wound up getting into the movies and wasn't going to go back to TV because back in that time, movies were far superior to doing television.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I I think with this particular series specifically, like it's all of the characters they just they have this way the writers just have this way of really making you connect to each of them. There's not like
Yeah,
a they killed one off at the toward a little while ago. I don't want to say
Hemmer,
anything
yeah,
just in case.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
okay. Well, there you
but
go. You said
well,
it.
I said it, but there's a reason to it because it comes
Yeah,
back later in this episode too. And
right.
I don't know if you actually caught it or not. And there's a little Easter egg with him in that.
Well, I thought there was an Easter egg also with Captain Kirk when he mentions Carol. And wasn't that
Yes,
from was it Wrath of Khan, the movie Wrath of
yes, it
Khan, where
was.
that's okay. So I really was like surprised because I liked the two of them together
Yes.
originally, like, and then he mentioned Carol and a baby on the way and all that other stuff. So I was like, oh
Well,
wow, okay, they
well,
really are like letting you have it ahead of time.
I
Love that.
want to ask you because you had said that you had thought that Pike was Kirk at first when you were
Yeah.
watching it.
Yeah.
What do you think of the actor who's playing James Kirk in Strange New Worlds?
Well, first of all, I'm a huge Salvatore fan. When I say Salvatore, I'm not just talking about our guest that's coming on today. But he was in Vampire Diaries, and I love him in general. So having him, and I think he's doing a really good job. He's embodying it nicely. And this last episode that was a musical, I thought that everybody like they took everybody's voices, and I heard that it took a really long time to shoot the episode because the songs were made for their voices, catered for their voices, and you know, and they were really singing. So I love that. I love that they didn't skimp on that, and they said they'd be open to another one. So I hope that they do it again. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
It was. I mean, it was kind of reminiscent of when Buffy the Vampire Slayer did their musical episode, but
Exactly.
Buffy was done more as a comedic take to an underlying darker story. This actually, to me, didn't seem like they were taking the parody approach or the comical aspect of it as much as actually keeping that as a main part of the story and still keeping it Star Trek feeling. Like even the dialogue and the songs are all like stuff that would have been said, by characters in the Star Trek show, and it wasn't just done for as a gag,
Yeah, it for
which I thought
sure.
was cool.
I think too, like being a lover of musicals, just like you are, they did have all the elements too, and I loved the ending with the Klingons. Like, I think
So
I read that there were two versions of that they filmed. Did you read this or no?
no,
Okay, so the 2 versions were the one that you actually saw, which I don't know if we wanna give it away, but the one that you actually saw on the show, and then the other one was an opera version. So it's like, because the Klingons with opera, I guess, was
yeah.
indicative of their culture or whatever. So, but yeah, so I thought that was really cool that they did a couple different things and ended up using the one that was a little further outside the box, but it just worked, and it was
A-
awesome.
Well, a little Easter egg with the Klingons was the gentleman who played the Klingon captain
Yeah.
was the actor who played Hemmer in the first season.
Gotcha. You know what?
So
I don't know if I figured that out.
yeah,
Um, yeah, no, I didn't. That's amazing. Thank you,
I
Ken. You're
I,
just
I know
full of Easter eggs.
I love that that the actor at least is still on standby for the show because he's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, they've brought him back, I know, in flashbacks
Right.
a couple times. So, you know, one that he had a pretty large role in,
Yeah.
so I thought that was pretty cool that they did that, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying it a lot. So,
Uh,
what else? I've watched, oh, I watched a movie, Dungeons& and Dragons, speaking of,
oh yeah.
the Chris Pine Dungeons& and Dragons,
Hey,
Honor
yeah.
Among Thieves. What did you think? Yeah,
I was floored by it because I have been disappointed by D&D movies in the past,
right.
and I was super excited and happy watching this. I had a smile on my face the whole time, actually.
Yeah,
I thought it was just a fun ride, and I thought Chris Pine and that cast was amazing.
yeah, I
And
me
they
too, same
generally
thing.
and it seems like they just genuinely had a good time and fun making it.
Right. Yeah, I'm wondering if they'll do, some kind of a spin-off or another one. I don't know if there's one in the works or not, but yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. So, well, I see that our guest has arrived, so I'm gonna let you do the honors of introducing him since you know him. So,
Oh, I mean, I don't know him that personally. We've spoken and interviewed in the past before, but let's give it up to the incredibly awesome R.A. Salvatore.
Hello.
hi, hello there.
Hey, Bob, how's it going, man?
Going good. Going good. Keeping busy.
Great, nice to meet
So,
you.
Nice to meet you.
so, I just wanted to bring up initially, we do have a new book coming out. Lost
We
Warrior,
do or
right?
I do?
We as in you.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you had written something, put my name on it. It's like, hey,
Being an incredibly large Drizzt fan, taking the road with your books and these characters' adventures for how many years has it been? Are we looking at now? It's got to be over
well, it's
30.
35th anniversary of Drizzt,
Yeah.
but I actually started writing them 36 years ago.
And first off, thank you, because just the amount of entertainment and great storytelling that you provided to everybody over the years has just been incredible. So thank you right off the bat for that.
No, well, I don't need thanks for that. It's been my journey. I'm just letting other people look at it. It's been quite a ride. No
Yeah.
complaints.
Well, since Ken mentioned Drizzt right off the bat, can we go back and just where did the idea, from what I've read about you and just doing my research for this interview, it was a secondary character originally, right?
Well, it
That
wasn't
character,
Drizzt originally. It was a
right?
character from a book called Dark Walker on Moonshade that Doug Niles had written, and there was Dareth, the Calamshite, and but that's because I thought the Forgotten Realms were the Moonshade Isles. That's all they sent me was that book,
Right.
and so I was like, when I sent the proposal and they said, well, you can't use the Moonshade Isles, and the only map I had was just the Moonshade Isles. I said, you want me in the water? But they sent me Ed's maps and we reset the book. And then I had already sent in the proposal. And when I won the audition to do the second book in the realms, they said, you can't use Dareth. I said, I don't want to use Dareth. I told you from the beginning, I was only using him to introduce my characters. They said, yeah, but the sample chapter has Dareth in it. So we need a sidekick for Wolfgar. And off the top of my head, I came up with Drizzt. And it was
History from there.
I had no idea where that came from. I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
I am too, actually. Again, one of my all-time favorite characters. And the stories, they transcend more than just the books. I mean, it's been in all over Dungeons and Dragons, whether it's the role-playing game, the board games, the video games. I mean, your works appeared everywhere. Like, how is that as a creator, actually seeing the characters beyond the books come to life beyond all of that?
Well, I really like it when I'm involved.
Well, yeah, I would assume, yes.
I remember playing Baldur's Gate, and I was running south, and I came upon this drow with 2 scimitars. Hey, help me kill these gnolls. And I'm like, this guy looks kind of familiar. And I went down there, and it was him. So I helped him kill the gnolls and then told him to give me his equipment because I knew what he had. I gave it to him, right? And he wouldn't, so I attacked him, and he killed me. Yeah. I remember a few years later, I had a friend I had made up in Canada at a convention, and he wrote to me, and he was apologizing because he had killed Drizzt. I mean, will you ever forgive me? I said, yeah, if you tell me how. And he did. So then I killed him repeatedly.
Now, speaking of, because I know you're a big Star Wars lover as well, right? So
Yeah.
I know, yeah. So
I mean, particularly the movies, those early movies. I was 18 years old when the first one started in the theater. And when that Star Destroyer came over my head, I was like, oh, everything's changed.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, do you have a favorite movie out of the series that is your go-to all-time favorite where you
I think
can't
I'm
pass
required by contract to say Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
No, my favorite's still the first one because that was I wasn't the target audience. I was like on the upper end of the target audience.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of feeling my imagination oats at that time, and it hit me just perfectly. So
Yeah.
that one's still the one that's my sentimental favorite. I have to say, oh, my dog's here.
Hello there.
I have to say that I think Rogue One is one of the best like space movies I've ever seen. Didn't have to be Star Wars, but it is Star Wars. But I think that's a wonderful. And the Andor, the show that went with it, was pretty spectacular as well.
Right.
In my opinion.
The reason I mentioned we segued from the kill off to because Ken had mentioned that about Chewbacca. Ken, we talked about it before about the wasn't there a book or something?
It was Vector
so
Prime.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Good answer.
So leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly. Love it.
Wasn't my idea. Gotta say that.
Yes.
So actually, so going back, you wrote the novelization of episode 2, Attack of the Clones, right?
Yeah, that was great. Working with George was great.
I would say, how did that work? So were you able to get like versions of the script beforehand to do that, or?
Yeah, what happened was I went up to. It was actually election night 2000. I remember it. I went up to I went up to Skywalker Ranch, and they gave me the first script, the first shooting script for Attack of the Clones. And I went back to my hotel room and I was reading it. And every time I finished the scene, we had a different president. Remember that night?
Yes.
I kept going back and forth. So that was really surreal. And the next day, I was going to have a 45-minute conversation with George Lucas. And it was funny because I went in there and I had all kinds of questions and some things I wanted to see if I could do in the novelization. And we're going, and right on time, 45 minutes, his secretary came into the room and said, "Oh, so-and-so's on line 1." And George was like, "Get out of here, get out of here." And 4 hours later, we were still talking. He was showing me like clips of like some of the director's clips of the movie that they were just starting to shoot. And it was just an incredible day. Yeah. So then it's funny because I wrote the book, and the book came out a couple of weeks before the movie, and they had to be translated into like 20 different languages, whatever. So I had to get the book in like a couple of months before the movie came out. And then right after the book came out, or right as it was coming out, I got the final shooting script. And they had added this massive battle at the back of the book. And that wasn't at the back of the script. It wasn't in the book because I didn't know they were doing that, right? And I was told follow the script, except for they let me do some stuff with Shmi and all that stuff. But so I didn't even know. It was like that they did this battle, and I'm like, oh crap, I would have loved to write this battle.
Yeah.
And instead I just had the Dooku fight with Yoda. But it was funny because then right after that, I started getting emails from people saying, "I really like your book, but you don't know how to write a battle." And I'm like,
You're known for your battles.
I know, but what are you going to do?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So
no, wait a minute. I take that back. It wasn't even. I was wrong on that. I misremembered that. Excuse me, my hair's bugging me. I misremembered that. It wasn't the shooting script. I was on tour for the book, and I was at Lucasfilm. They said, "You want to see the director's cut of the movie?" I said, "Well, yeah." And then they showed it to me, and I'm reading it, and I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, wait, what's this at the end? What's this? What is this? What is this? What is this? That's what it was, because the script, even the second script, didn't have that in there. But George is known for once he's out in the field and gets going, he just keeps going. He just follows. I love that because I'm a pantser too. So yeah, I didn't get to write it, and oh well.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite books of yours also is Child of a Mad God.
Oh, thank you.
I'm guessing there isn't a lot of love for that one.
No, the people really love it, but it's my Demon Wars books. My Demon Wars books don't get the love Drizzt gets. Child of a Mad God is the one my wife read and then gave it to all my sisters, and they read it, and they were like, "Wow, yeah, this is your best book."
I love the world building in it, actually.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know this. The other day, Saga just did a big announcement that they've repackaged the original 7 Demon Wars books, from Demon Awakens to Immortalis. Those will be coming out next year, and plus the new series begins in April next year, following up on the Coven trilogy.
Oh, that's awesome! Congrats.
Yep. It's a pirate series. I'm very excited about it.
I love it.
The first 2 are done. The first book was about as much fun as I've ever had writing a book.
That's awesome.
I have an arms race going on at sea. It's really fun.
I think you and I had mentioned this before too, but one of the things that I love, graphic audio has adapted some of your stories.
Oh, they did. Yeah, they did the Demon Wars books.
And there is
some really great ones.
There is something very awesome with them that I love, where they're all fully dramatized audiobooks, full cast, and it's an experience.
Well, it was really funny because I worked with them many, many years ago on Demon Wars, and I loved it. But then they weren't getting a ton of distribution. As good as they were, you had to get a bunch of discs, right? I mean, but when things switched over to Audible and all of that, I was talking to them and I was like, look, Audible wants these books, but there's a fight going on because they're already out in this, and this is, kind of a similar format for rights and everything. And, but Graphic Audio didn't want to distribute with Audible at that time. So I wound up going to Audible because the Graphic Audio ones had kind of, it had kind of lived its life at that time. But then Graphic Audio wanted to bring them back, and Audible said, okay. I worked with Audible and Graphic Audio say, okay. So Graphic Audio remastered them and put them back out. Yeah, it's a very I don't think a graphic audio and the audiobook are the same thing at all. I love the reads of the Tim Garrard Reynolds does the reads of the straight reads of the Demon Wars books, and he's fabulous. He's perfect for it. Just like Victor Bavine is great for Drizzt. They found the right narrators. But graphic audio is something different because it's more like they call it a movie in your mind, right? And they have all the actors and all the sound effects. So it's a very different experience. It's abridged, but it's really good.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's anything any more like an audio book than, say, a movie would be. So I'm happy because you can get it in any format now.
That's awesome.
Right. With the inception of everything happening with AI, is there any worry for you? Or are
No,
you
I'm not
like,
worried at all.
good?
I'm not worried at all. I think
Good.
the worries are overblown. My only worry about AI is corporations are going to use it to get rid of workers,
Right.
which is what the WGA strike's all about. I stand with them on that. That's because, when George Lucas, I actually heard George Lucas the other day. I read something he had written about what they're selling in Hollywood is creative talent. That's what they're selling, is creativity. And but they don't understand it. They're not realizing the value of that. But, writers and even actors have been, other than the stars, have been unappreciated in Hollywood forever, right?
Right. Yeah.
So my way of thinking on AI is it will find its place. And as long as people are being honest about what they're doing with it, I'm okay with it. For example, if I'm going to run a dungeon for my group, describing 30 rooms and writing it out so I know what to say to them, that is just drudgery.
Yeah.
If I can get ChatGPT to do it for my group, then thank you.
Yeah.
My players will have a better experience.
Right.
But it's still my imagination. So I'm less worried about it from the single, the individual use of it than I am about how it can, destroy the ability of people to make a living as a writer or actor or an artist. And I think the artists really got it because they were finding pieces of their paintings in these AI renderings.
Yeah.
Which is pretty horrible. And I don't know if Chat GPT or the Word ones are the same thing. Are they plagiarizing? I don't know. They're using an adverb, an adjective, and putting them to, a noun. They're putting the structure together. Are they actually stealing phrases from authors? Are they stealing paragraphs from Connie Willis or something like that? I don't know. So that's a little murkier than me. But I think it has its uses. And, there's a guy walking today who wasn't supposed to be walking, except that AI connected his brain to his backbone and he's walking. I'm not afraid of the future. I'm afraid of what people can do with it. But that's up to us to stop it. It's up to. I mean, right now, I can guarantee you that there are books on Kindle that somebody put together in a week and used ChatGPT to do it. But that's what's been. I mean, there are people copying other people and putting it up there all the time anyway.
Yeah.
I saw one guy and he was advertising himself as, if you like me, you'll love him. And he had characters that looked remarkably like my characters. And he had essays that looked like my essays with the words changed by someone who didn't understand what the essays meant. What are you going to do? This is the world we live in. I
mean, do you even bother to challenge something like that at that point?
No, I don't even care at this point. At this point, I mean, I care, but it's when you do something like that, you're probably just giving them more publicity than anything else. And there are other things that I don't care about at all. Like, for example, I go to a book signing and I'll see people come up and they'll have shirts on that have a quote from me without attribution, or have pictures that one of the artists did. And it bothers me that somebody's making money on that stuff. But it doesn't bother me for the people who are wearing the shirts, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because these are fans and there should be more merchandise anyway. Get on that, Hasbro, right? So these are fans. These are fans, and they're just trying to get everything they can involved with the realms, with me, with D&D, whatever the IP is. So I don't have a problem with the people doing it. I just and even I think a lot of the people that are making the T-shirts don't really understand that they're ripping people off, or it's very small. They sell 50 of them, right? I mean, and if you've ever tried to do a license with one of these companies for like 50 units.
Yeah,
can't
it's not
do
even
it.
worth
They
it.
won't
It's
even.
like, yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have a very mixed feelings on the whole thing. But I mean, look, to me, the music industry, the artists, the musicians have been using AI forever.
Right.
You know, if you watch what's the Sound City, that wonderful documentary about the studio called Sound City by Dave Grohl. And the whole thing talks about this Neve board that came in that was used by like Fleetwood Mac and Neil Young, and everybody was using it. And then it kind of went out in the 80s with all the synthesizers. And then it came back again when Nirvana went in there and did their, you know, breakout album with that. But the end of that, he talks about the creative process, and they're talking about the producers, and the producers are saying, you know, it's the music industry is so different now because people sit in a hotel room with a computer and write songs and have the computer do. That's AI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's not technically AI, but it is.
Right.
So I guess the point is, when is it a helper, like a spell check or a search and replace on a word processor, and when does it start stealing the creative process?
Yeah.
And that's where I want to draw the line.
Me
And
too.
I'm actually seeing now. I'm seeing now, like I've heard that they're going to stop putting ChatGPT suggestions into like word processors, and there better be an easy way to shut that off.
Yeah.
I'm going to use a typewriter because I don't want ChatGPT telling me how to do things.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I make my living by breaking the rules of grammar.
Yeah.
No, I really do. I'm not even
100%.
kidding about that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you too, going back with the Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and if it's a sore subject, I apologize, but as a creator, how, like, what goes on with, like, how much control do you actually have over characters in regards to, say, a company like Hasbro that owns Dungeons and Dragons when you write a novel?
We have a relationship and understanding and contracts I can't talk about, but Hasbro's been really great with me. With me, they've been really great. That's, you know, I can only speak to my own experience because they want me involved when they're doing things with my characters.
Not
Not
which is a great
always,
place to
but
be.
yeah, not always. I can say they're not always as great as I wish they were, and neither was WotC and neither was TSR before WotC because it's a complicated issue. I mean, it's work for hire, or at least they say it is. My contract says it is. I could probably challenge that, but we'll see. I never would. But I have an amazing working relationship with Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, and I have for 35 years. And these people are my friends, and they respect me, and they know I respect them. So, like, when we're going to do something like, I did a video called Sleep Sound where I wrote a drow lullaby that was read by Benedict Cumberbatch. I probably said his name wrong, right? Because you're supposed to change it. Whatever. And it was animated by the people. Jeremy Jarvis was kind of the lead on the project up at Wizards of the Coast. But I had very little to do with that other than writing the lullaby. And they put out this 2 to 3 minute video called Sleep Sound. And it's amazing. It brought tears to my eyes when I saw it. I'm like, wow. Now, part of that was Benedict Cumberbatch just being incredible. And a lot of that was Jeremy Jarvis's vision and the other people at WotC that were working with him. Jeremy was the point man, so I'm probably not giving them enough credit. He was amazing on that. And the people that did the actual art in the video, it's like an animated video. It's fantastic. So, you know, I mean, my first experience with other people taking my work and doing something with it was the first person who read The Crystal Shard was Larry Elmore. And he did that original cover of The Crystal Shard. And I have the color comp hanging on my wall over there. It's like amazing. So to me, it's like, I know what I created and I will, you know, I'm not going to say protect it, but I want to be involved when it's being used elsewhere. But I also understand that I'm not a screenwriter. I'm not a comic book writer. I'm a novelist. So if they're going to get somebody to do a comic adaptation, I want to work with them. I want to edit them. As a matter of fact, we just announced the San Diego Comic-Con. They're doing a new webtoon for Drizzt's daughter, Breezy. And they hired Purpa, who is one of, I think she's the leading fantasy webtoon writer out there. Her script,
Mm.
her one that it's called Soother Armor is like number 1 or 2 all the time on webtoons for fantasy. And they hired this Ryan McCourt, who is just incredible, the artist. And every week we get on a Zoom call. Well, it hasn't been every week because everybody's been too busy and running around with conventions and stuff. But we get on a Zoom call, and Perpa has sent the script over, and Paul up at Wizards is going to edit the script, and I can give input. And most of my input is just giving little Easter eggs as to what might come later, so she can put little Easter eggs in her thing. But I told her the relationship of like Bree to her parents, Drizzt and Caddy Bree, and she took off with it, and she's wonderful to work with, and she's brilliant. So that makes me happy. That doesn't make me sad when that happens.
Yeah.
Nice. Talking about the conventions too. Have you been to a lot lately?
No,
especially with the new book.
Gen
or
Con
no?
last year, and I haven't been to anything since. It's different now. It really is. I mean, I go to the conventions. I used to go to see old friends. My old friends aren't there anymore. They're all retired or gone. You know, it's it's a lot for me. I have 8th grandkid coming.
Wow!
And
Congratulations.
I like being a grandfather, and I'm really involved with my family. And I go back and forth between here in Massachusetts and California. And you know, I love meeting the people who read my books. We have great conversations out, but you don't do book signings anymore like you used to because they don't have the stock, and there aren't enough stores in the town to make it worth getting on a plane and flying there. It's just a very different industry than the one I grew up in.
Yeah,
I'd like to get to a couple of conventions next year when the Demon Wars books come back out too, because then we'll have all the Drizzt books and the Demon Wars books to bring there. But and I'd like to do a European tour. That would be the other thing. I'd like to get back to Europe. I haven't been there in a while. I love going to Europe.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
So part of the show, we like to get to know our guests a little bit more. So we're just going to ask a couple questions back and forth, get to know you a little bit more. So my first question is, I know you're a family man. You just mentioned that. What's your favorite dish that either your mom or your wife, somebody cooks for you? What's your go-to?
Oh, you know, it's we've gone pretty vegan here. Not
Okay.
vegan, pretty vegetarian.
Okay.
But every now and then Diane will make chicken. She's so good at cooking chicken. So it would be the chicken, I think.
Okay. Ken, you're up.
What games are you currently playing?
Playing WoW Classic. That's it. Okay. Although I see Baldur's Gate just came out, so I might pick that up.
Yeah.
See if any of my characters in it. I don't game as nearly as much as I used to. I used to game a lot, but then when 38 Studios exploded, I just ran away from computer gaming for a long time. I picked up like EverQuest Classic version, and then I'm back when Blizzard opened up WoW Classic. I went back to that.
Well, you were,
and then on Sundays,
right?
On Sundays, my group gets together, and right now we're playing Stars Without Number.
Okay.
We just finished Act 1. My son ran it. I had never heard of it before, but I really loved it. We had it reminded me of like early D&D where you had to be very agile because you had to be very creative as a DM and as a player. And we had a wonderful, and the dice were rolling perfectly for all of the 3 characters, where when we had to do something, it worked for some reason. Or if it didn't work, it was really funny. So but he ended it because he's starting law school, actually. So he's just going to play. And we're going to 5e, but we're playing in a really weird kind of futuristic world with it now that my niece's husband, so my nephew, Peter, is running. And that's pretty cool. We're off to a pretty good start.
Cool.
That's
my weekly game.
Well, speaking of games, when you were a kid, beyond Dungeons and Dragons, what was your first game that you remember playing as a kid?
Oh, well, I mean, when I was a kid, we played just the basic Monopoly, Candyland, all those things. And then I wasn't a gamer or a writer going through school at all. And then when I was in college, my freshman year of college, my sister gave me the copy of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. And when I read it, I remembered how much I used to love reading when I was little.
Yeah.
And school had beaten that out of me. I was a math physics major. And so I just fell back in love with my imagination and fantasy and all of that. And then my brother had joined the D&D group. He had just gotten back from the Marines. And he joined the D&D group where he worked. There's some friends from work and other people they knew. And they invited me in to start learning to play D&D, which was, that was like 1980. And I just, from there, haven't stopped.
Yeah. Ken,
But
last
for a
question
while
for
there, I
you.
was really into the Avalon Hill games, the war games.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Like when my friend came in and pulled me out of a Risk game that I was playing and dragged me out from a blind date. That's how I met my wife. But then I had to quit the war games because I wasn't sleeping. I was too busy trying to figure out how I would take out the supply lines, and my head wouldn't shut off. So I had to quit the war games.
I love Risk. That's one of my favorite games for sure.
Yeah, but mine was War and Peace. War and Peace was just so much fun.
Congo, very strong country.
I had to quit.
Congo, very strong country is what we always said when we played. For some reason, that was the one. Ken, back to you.
Do you foresee in the future us ever seeing any kind of live action incarnation of any of your stories?
I don't know. I keep saying yes and then no and then yes and then no. I have heard so many rumors over the years. I would be surprised right now where content is king if they didn't do a Drizzt adaptation. And if that happened, maybe I could get Demon Wars out there.
Yeah, I mean that Demon Wars.
Whenever I've gone to try to sell Demon Wars, I can't try to sell Drizzt. I don't own those rights.
Right.
But whenever I've gone to try to sell Demon Wars, well, what about Drizzt? But I can't do anything about that.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I just have my fingers crossed. That's all.
I think people put too much thought in potential issues, and I'll just leave it at that because they're not there. Yeah. I don't agree with that at all, not one iota. So just do it, just do it. Because I think it'll be a hit if they do it right, if they're true to the characters. But again, that's above my pay grade.
Yep.
The last question that we always ask is, what piece of advice do you have for people who, want to kind of do what you're doing? But I also want to extend that as well to what makes a good storyteller. What makes you a good storyteller?
I'm a good liar. No, whenever someone says I want to be a writer, I can't give advice on how to do it now.
Yeah.
I can't go out there and say, do this, send it here, do this, because the industry's changed so much, When I was starting, what you did is you wrote short stories. And if you could get enough short stories published, you might be able to get a book deal. But that's all different now with self-publishing. And now when people are doing anthologies, they're not interested in beginning writers. They call me, they call George Martin, they call Terry Brooks, because they want names to sell the anthology. And that's kind of, I don't know, to me, that's missing. I really wish they were still trying to discover people through short stories like they used to, but that's not the industry anymore. And of course, now you have self-publishing. So, a lot of people get into it and they decide, I'm not going to go try to get with a publisher. I'm going to self-publish. And that's happened a lot. So I can't really give that kind of advice anymore because the landscape is nothing I know. Right. When I was doing it, you got the writer's market or the literary marketplace and you found out who would accept what and what query letter, what you had to put with the query letter. Did you need sample chapters? All the different things you had to send to different publishers. That's all different now. Yeah. But the one advice I do give is if you want to be a writer is if you can quit. Because if you can quit, you're not a writer. That's not why you do it. You do it because the journey is your journey. I write because it helps me make sense of the world. And I think that's true for almost anyone who writes. It's because you put your characters in these pressure situations and you beat on them until they tell you the truth. And, if you're going to be a writer, you have to be brave. You have to be able to run naked through Times Square at noon, figuratively. Don't worry.
Thank you.
But if you're going to be a writer, you have to put yourself out there. And, being a writer, I once said, it's like writing that perfect piece in the second grade and turning it in and getting it back with red marks all over it. Because when you're a writer, no matter how many letters you get from people that say your books have helped them, guys in the military, gals in the military saying, you got me through the day, I didn't have any friends in high school and your characters became my friends. Your character was an inspiration in my battle with cancer, or, all these other letters are wonderful and warm. You got to wear them like armor, because if you're a writer and the more successful you get, the worse it gets. There's always going to be someone out there that's more than happy to tell the whole world how much you suck.
Yeah.
So my point is, if you're going to be a writer, it's because you've got something inside you. You've got stories inside you, clawing at the inside of your skin, trying to break out. And you'll never be happy if you're not writing. So shut up, sit down, and type. If you don't have that, this isn't for you. Especially now. It's never been for you, but it's not a shortcut to fame and fortune in any way, shape, or form. I remember when I was very early in my career, I was in a bookstore. I think it was Tattered Cover in Denver. It was the biggest independent bookstore in the world. And the media escort said to me, look around. You realize that in this entire store, there are only 3% of the people whose books are on these shelves made a living as a writer. And that's the truth. You do it because you have to.
Yeah. I love that.
Which is why you should be doing it.
Well, Bob, I really want to thank you for hanging with us today. It's been a pleasure. It's always an honor to get to talk to you and pick your brain a little bit.
Having me back on.
Yeah. Tell us when your book's coming out.
I think it's August 15th. I have to do a couple of e-signings. For people who want to get an autographed copy of that or any of my books, there's rasalvastore.com. It's my wife's online store. You can go over there and order the books. It's the same price, except we have to charge for shipping because we're not Amazon.
I have actually ordered as gifts for the holidays for friends through your store. Actually, I love it, and the fact that everything comes signed too is, when you're the option for signing on there is great.
Yep, we've got a lot of books to sign in the next couple of weeks. I hope they come in soon so I can get going on it, because there's a lot. But yeah, so it's coming out the 15th, and then the next thing out will probably be the Demon Wars reprints and the new book in April of next year, the pirate book.
I can't wait for that. Will there be mermaids? Are there mermaids with those pirates?
No.
No.
But there are witches.
Oh, witches. Okay.
It's called Pinquickle's Folly.
Oh.
And he's a Powery captain that made a stupid move and paid for it. Powery's a little bloody cap. Dwarves, they're a lot of fun. But yeah, and then after that, the second book and the third book in that series, and I have no idea what else right now, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, we will continue to follow your career and read your works. I can't wait to also watch the Benedict Cumberbatch piece, and tell us the name of that again.
Sleep Sound.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
And once again, Bob, thank you again. Thank you for all the years of entertainment and emotion and everything that you've given us in all of your writing.
It's been a great journey. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Take care. Have a good night.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Wow. He was great.
I love Bob Salvatore. He's awesome. Again, one of my all-time favorite writers too. He's
great little tidbits.
Yeah, and he brings it. Like he knows what he wants to talk about and where he wants to bring conversations to, and I love the man. I really do.
I can't wait to read more of his work, actually, and definitely that sleep sound or sound sleep sound. Sound sleep is what I want to have every night.
Yes.
Sleep
That's
sound.
how I've been feeling. Exactly how I've been feeling lately. Yes.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you have read of his that has been your favorite?
Well, the original the Crystal Shard, the original trilogy that he wrote that introduced us to Drizzt was awesome. And then the original trilogy, first trilogy of Drizzt on his own, which started off with a book called Homeland, which is what I'm going to be sending to you, or I'm giving to you. Actually, at this point, I don't have to send it to you. We have to just get together so I can just present it to you in person, because we haven't seen each other in person, face to
Yay.
face, in a long time. Um,
Thank
but yeah,
you.
it's definitely a gateway book. If you don't read fantasy, it's a great way to get into it, and if you appreciate it, it's still one of those great origin stories, and it just envelops you as soon as you start reading it. It catches you as soon as you start reading it.
Right.
It's it,
Well, I mean, I've read all of the Lord of the Rings, the most of Tolkien stuff. I've
right.
read the Game of Thrones, obviously. I read that when, Hunger Games wouldn't be considered that kind of, um, but yeah, so I love to read different things. I'm actually reading a book now called Silver Phoenix.
Get out.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, it's got our name on it, so I have to read it. And it is fantasy. It's kind of reminding me so far of like a little bit like Mulan. It's kind of combination of like Mulan or one of the Korean dramas that I've been watching. So I'm enjoying it so far. I'm very at the beginning, so it's
Yeah,
I'll keep you posted what I think. But I think we have a little bit more business to take care of before we say goodbye today. So
I think we need to get in the kitchen.
I think we do. All right, let's roll that clip.
What's up, Ken and Blaze? I have a question for you both. When's the last time you opened up an actual cookbook? Yes, in this day and age, we have tons of inspo literally at our fingertips. We can be on Instagram, we could be on TikTok, we can be browsing the New York Times website or whatever blog we choose. Maybe Long Island's own Skinny Taste. I don't know. Maybe that's where I'm sending everybody. But if you want to take a deeper dive into a specific cuisine, the next best thing to actually going to that country or region, I would argue, is to go and pick up an actual cookbook. Go on ahead and immerse yourself in some cooking literature. Get some ideas, get the wheels turning. I'm not saying you have to follow those recipes to the letter or that you have to go out and procure a bunch of ingredients that you might not use again. But if you want to explore different ideas and flavors, a cookbook is the way. On that note, how about re-exploring some of the classics like The Joy of Cooking? If that is not in your kitchen or on your shelf, why don't you remedy that? I think you'll really enjoy some of the history of US cooking and maybe get some great ideas and background on the origins of some of your favorites. So Ken and Blaze, why doesn't everybody get themselves to the bookstore, or better yet, because it's free, the library? Pick a culture, go immerse yourself, go surprise yourself and your loved ones with something new in the kitchen this month. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you,
so
Nicole.
much. We so appreciate it. And we are going to have you come and do an episode with us very, very soon, because we miss having you
Yes.
with us here. So season 3, continuing
A
in
great trend.
the great trend, great fashion, and looking forward to what we have coming up next. So
Yeah, we have a lot going on. We have some fun stuff coming up. We are going to be doing our own kind of gaming in the future. I'm not gonna go into specifics, but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
can't wait. All right. Well, you have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you next week.
Take care.
Bye, all.
You've just enjoyed the Silver Phoenix Happy Hour with Blaze and Ken.